Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Workplace Therapy. It's a weekly podcast where we discuss the challenges of working together and doing the work of healing together. My name's Scott Arrieta. I'm the founder and CEO of Unity & Company. We're a consulting firm that leverages a strategic understanding of human experiences to help organizations unlock best-in-class performance. I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Dr. Sarah Gould. She's the VP of Learning and Development at Unity & Company, and Skylar Lewandowski. She's our Director of Special Programs. And this week, we're very excited to have a very special guest on this show, Shannon Kahn. Shannon is the founder of SMK Consulting, and she founded SMK Consulting to create profit and prosperity for staffing firms. With over 3 decades of staffing industry experience, Shannon has a history of leading teams that deliver exceptional results with a focus on driving revenue and profitability, operational excellence, and leadership development. Working for both large public companies and niche firms, she held many executive leadership positions throughout her career. Shannon spent more than 16 years working in the skilled trades sector, where she's developed a passion for blue-collar workforce and is committed to creating awareness and appreciation for the trades and other blue-collar professions. And this is a passion that we all share here at Workplace Therapy because Sarah and I have both worked at companies that had a strong blue-collar skilled trades component. So Shannon, we're very excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Scott. I am thrilled to be here as well.
All right. So I want to open it up with just a background question for you. So can you just tell us a little bit about your background, why you started SMK Consulting specifically, and how you became involved in the skilled trades staffing industry?
Sure. I, like many people in the staffing industry, just fell into the business many years ago, as you said, decades ago. And I was looking for a position in sales, and I ended up at a company in Southern California. And from the very beginning, it was just a great fit. I loved the pace. I loved the variety of different types of customers that you got to work with and see and kind of see the inner workings of different businesses. And was very successful and ended up moving into leadership roles with that organization. And then in around 1998, we decided to move back with our kids to Seattle, where I'm from. And shortly after arriving in Seattle, I got a call from a recruiter about a leadership role with a skilled trade staffing company. And honestly, my first reaction was, well, that sounds dangerous, as I had not had any experience working in the skilled trades or even knew that a skilled trade staffing company existed. So fortunately, I went through the process, was hired, and just immediately just dug in and loved the skilled trades and construction environment. And it did not take me long to give up my heels and suits for boots and a hard hat, and just getting out on job sites and actually like seeing the work and seeing the fruits of your labor and really developing an appreciation for the trades, getting an understanding of the different phases of construction and how a building comes together. And I just really ended up loving it. And it was both, I love the construction industry, but it happened to be a very healthy, exciting company to be with great leadership. So it couldn't have been a better experience for me. And we ended up being acquired by True Blue, and I continued to take on different leadership roles, but always stayed involved and connected with skilled trades throughout that time. So really, truly have a love and a passion for that aspect of the business, and still love staffing as well, but skilled trades was a tremendous part of that history. And as far as the consulting practice, I always had in mind that at some point later in my career that I would like to do consulting. I like working with companies, helping them figure out how to solve their problems, helping them identify opportunities, working through those different aspects of how do you grow a business? Because there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. And so working with leaders to figure out what is the best path forward and how do we get your teams united towards that path is now I'm taking my years of experience and working with those companies. And like you said, just really want to help them build profit and prosperity for themselves and for their clients.
I love that story, Shannon, and the way that you kind of tell the story of the journey through your career. One of the things that I extracted from what you just said is, I mean, it seems like you're always looking for a way to connect with people and make an impact, right? And I think that seems to be the common thread between your executive work, your transition to skilled trades, and your decision to consult and help organizations at a broader level. And I think that perspective is really absolutely necessary to help you to transition from kind of more of an executive non-skilled trades role to stepping into the skilled trades world. And this is something I mentioned at the top of the show that Sarah and I know very well, is we worked for a company that was really interestingly this amalgamation of white collar venture funded tech startup with a skilled trade staffing component. Mm-hmm. And it's a great idea on paper. And I'm really proud of some of the work that company has done. But what I've seen being a leader in that context is there were great leaders and there were okay leaders at this company. And the okay leaders are the ones who were content to basically engage with skilled trades as a product offering, but not really understand the experience and the plight of those workers, the value they provided, the conditions that they work under, and the complexity of gaining expertise in the area in which they are experts, right? There's a lot of, I think we may have overcorrected as a society with this emphasis on professional jobs in offices, getting college degrees, because what has happened is probably an unintended consequence of that is I don't think that the skilled trades really get the honor, the respect that they deserve for just how great that career path is, right? And so I think that there have been leaders in my experience in that context that kind of treated the skilled trades as a product that we offered and kind of engaged with it intellectually, but not experientially. And then the best leaders at this company were the ones who came into it with humility, like you did, and said, look, I know I'm an executive and I know I have value to offer, but that in and of itself is not enough. I need to strap on the boots, put on the hard hat, put on the vest, and really get to see what the day-to-day looks like. So I was wondering if you could just dig a little bit deeper into that for me, because I'm really interested to hear what are the big ahas that you experienced when you kind of ventured outside of the safety of the corporate office and into the field? What are the paradigm shifts that you encountered?
Yeah, I think all great perspectives, Scott. And I was ignorant walking in, and but I knew I had to sort of take off that executive hat and live in their world, and show respect and ask questions. And I found the clients to be extremely down to earth, honest, and forthright, and that was so refreshing. And I found that I was showed respect to them and said, tell me about this phase or that phase or what's important to you, and listen to them. They were more than happy to share what their experiences, what their needs are, what their problems were, what keeps them up at night, what they worry about. And so I think that was really helpful to see that side of the business. And then also for the tradespeople, they're a very proud group of people. And I think like all of us, they just want people to understand that what they do is important and that they play a very vital role, and that it takes skill and it takes years of experience to be good at it. I think that there's this disconnect and sometimes this feeling that there's this commoditization of that workforce and that there's plenty of them and it's easy to do. And that's not the case. And so I think we really need to, it's incumbent upon us to really make sure that we're clear on that. So if you think about, we expect our lights to go on, we expect the plumbing to work, we expect the air conditioning to go on in the summer and the heat in the winter, and our roofs to not leak. There are things that we expect on a day-to-day basis. And when they don't work, life gets very uncomfortable very fast. And I think there's this assumption that it's all going to work and it's going to be super quick and easy to fix, and it's just not. So I think if everybody on an individual basis could be aware of that and acknowledge that, that I think is what I pulled from that. I'll give a quick example. I was in an airport bathroom a couple weeks ago, and I walked in, and there's a guy working on the sink, and there was a woman there. It was this escort. And when I was leaving, I stopped and I said, I'm not sure what you're doing there, but I want to thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing because I know it's really important. And she said, he's an essential worker. And I said, you're absolutely right. He is. And thank you for what you're doing. So I think as individuals, we can each take that step and just notice the work that's being done and acknowledge it and be grateful for it. Because a lot of what I think is missing in that career path is that acknowledgement, and that it's not just okay, but it's a great career path for you, and it can be very gratifying and rewarding, and it's just something that I think we don't do enough as parents and as individuals in society to acknowledge and show that respect and that appreciation.
Amen. 100% agree.
To your point, Shannon, I think what a powerful example of the staff member that's in the bathroom. And I think oftentimes when we're in public spaces, it's almost like our brain is so tunnel vision, we forget to really lift our heads up and look around to see the people that are making what you're enjoying or experiencing possible. What do you find are the most common misconceptions about careers in skilled trades? And how do we begin to address those?
Yeah, I think that my experience was that the individuals in those trades are somewhat not reliable, or they're easily replaceable, or their value to society isn't as great as somebody who's building an app. And I think that has it's grown over time, unfortunately. And part of why it's like this, we hear and see in the media and in the way our government supports STEM and other college career paths. And I think that one of the misconceptions is that it's a dead end job, and it's not. I mean, I think that there's not enough, conversation around or written about or talked about as far as there are many, many paths you can take, regardless of how you enter the trades, which trade you enter. There's ways over your course of your career to move into project management, to estimating, to safety, to education. For anybody who's interested in owning their own business and starting their own business, this is a tremendous opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And just go out there and your success is based on what you do and how you perform. And you can have a wonderful career building your own business if that's what you're interested in. And I think that those misconceptions are out there that if you step in, that you're kind of stuck at a particular level. And that's just not the case. And so I think that when we think about how do we get past that, it really is the individuals, like I just mentioned, each of us individually being aware of and acknowledging the work that's being done. But if we really want to make progress, we need business and education and government to work together. And we need to open the doors and allow people in who want to do that work and provide opportunities for them to grow. Things like Pell Grants and other funding that is out there for college and for individuals that might go to traditional colleges and university, making that available for tradespeople. Also, just a more education around why this is a great career. We need more role models. We need more role models of people that are making this as a career and a successful career, and that it's not just it's not just a career and a way to make a living, but it's a source of pride. And I'll share a quick story. I was working with a group called Generation T, and they had invested a significant amount of money to try and changed the perception of the trades in the industry, working with Lowe's and some other companies. And the research they did uncovered that one of the biggest reasons that young people don't get into the trades is they're afraid their friends will think they're boring. So isn't that interesting, and isn't that powerful to think that little thing right there, that sense of I need to feel like I'm important and I belong and people respect what I do, my peers, my friends, my family are proud of me, that sense of my own personal well-being is a roadblock to young people getting in the industry. And when you think about it, we still only graduate 35% of the population from college. So that leaves 65% of the population that's not going to finish college. Now, they may go into a variety of different career paths, but if they're not looking at this as an option, then there's just this whole opportunity gap, if you will. And Scott, I think you brought up a really good point. I think there's a tremendous amount of anxiety out there right now about just in general, there's layoffs in tech, there's AI, which is going to change how people work and what work is done. And that's going to happen very, very fast. And I think there's probably a very high level of anxiety with people who are in roles where their roles could either go away or the expectations on them are going to be very different. And living with that type of anxiety about, gosh, is my worth going to go away? Am I no longer making a contribution that's worthwhile? It's time. I think that if some of those folks could look up and say, maybe there's something else out there for me, that I'm in more control of my destiny, and I'm more in control of where I go and how I spend my day. And that while technology is definitely making its way into the trades, use of drones, and there's other programs that help. The actual structure is still going to be built right there on the site, right? And so I think if you're feeling a little bit of anxiety and stress about I'm losing control of what I do and how I make my living, take a look at this, because it could be a significant improvement in your outlook and how you feel about your job and how you feel about your control over your career.
Shannon, I love that you brought up the misconception of entrepreneurship within the skilled trades. And actually, my dad was an entrepreneur in skilled trades. He owned his own development and construction company. And so I kind of grew up like on the job sites as well. But I think there were so many leadership lessons I learned from him and watching him deal with, all the workers and all the mishaps that come in construction. And I'm sure you've seen it on the job sites as well. Like, what lessons do you think that corporate America leaders can take from leaders within the skilled trades?
That's a great question, Skylar. I think that, one of the things that comes to mind, I remember a term, management by walking around, that I learned many, many years ago. I think she was actually coined by IBM, but we miss that today, particularly in our hybrid remote environment. The actual physical presence of leadership with people that are doing the work every day. And on a job site, it happens naturally. Your dad probably spent time walking around the job site, talking to the various trades, talking to his subs, getting an update on what's happening, seeing it in real time. And I think he would probably tell you that was one of the ways that he was able to stay on top of things, but also make sure that everyone got the feedback they needed, and that each trade was able to talk to the other ones in terms of what the next phase is, any challenges they see. So I think we need to remember that physical connection is still really important. It's not maybe feasible every day in today's world, but we need to make sure we integrate that as well. And so that management by walking around is I think one of the things that we can learn. The other one is the collaboration and the connection between the different trades. the handoff. You can't just, there needs to be communication between the different phases of construction and the working together. And I think we tend to, in business, in corporate America, work in our silos. Marketing does their thing, sales does their thing, operations does theirs, tech does theirs. And there's not a really clear picture of how they all interact and how they overlap, and how what's happening over here impacts what's happening over here. But on a job site, there is a lot more of that collaboration and a sense of connection and reliance on each other. I need to do my job well for this next phase to go well. And so I think there's a lot of things that we could take from that environment. And it's really gratifying. We always say that the days that we were out walking on job sites was always a good day, because you really walked away with this visual of what's happening. You could see the work being done, talk to the people that are doing the work. They could show you different phases, and you just had a better understanding of it. And I think that we crave that connection. And I think people in a job site community have that sense of community. They feel they respect each other. They know that the electrician knows how to do their job, the plumber knows how to do their job, the carpenter knows how to do their job, and so on. And so there's that mutual respect, but understanding that none of us could build this on our own. We have to rely on each other and trust that each other is going to do their piece of the project for it to be completed in the right time and to be done properly. So I think those are lessons learned, just both the management by walking around, like your dad did, and the collaboration between the trades, having more visibility into how those components work in a business environment, because you can't see it as much, right? You can't necessarily see the results of the work in the same way, but you can talk about it. You can just sit down and talk about what you're doing and how it relates to each other.
I do have a follow-up question on the walking around, because I think I've experienced in, the corporate setting, like a manager kind of like looking over your shoulder, or like you kind of feel weird. So how do you see the skilled trade leaders not be a micromanager while being present in their leadership and being present for their workers around them?
Yeah, I think by its very nature, they can't really necessarily look over their shoulder, but I think there's always the job site trailer is a place where people gather, and they have usually a daily meeting. So there's their quick updates before they go out into the field. And again, that presence together facilitates that, where everybody's sitting at the table together. And then it's really just that ability to come around and tell me what's happening here, or if there's a problem, let's talk about it and let's solve it right here and now. And I think that looking over the shoulder is something that, one of the things I try to do when I'm talking to someone is come around the outside of the desk and sit at a table side by side, so that physically you're side by side. And I would never do like a performance review with me behind the desk and the person in front of me. That power differentiation, that barrier just creates a power struggle, not a power struggle, but a dynamic that isn't healthy. So I think that coming around and just making sure that you physically are at the same level. And on a job site, it's often standing side by side. So it already kind of levels the playing field for the leadership and the people doing the work. So, and I think often, for the most part, and it's probably true of your dad, that there is people in leadership roles in the trades were probably doing that work themselves at some point. And oftentimes leaders in the corporate world maybe never did that job that you're doing and don't really have a clear understanding of what it takes, what the challenges are, what you deal with every day. They're just metrics driven. And whether it's, I need so many calls, so many appointments, so many clicks, so many MQLs, whatever it is, that becomes the focus, as opposed to tell me what's going on a day-to-day basis and what are the challenges you're seeing.
That's powerful. The question I I have is, what role do you think diversity and inclusion play in the skilled trades, and how could we work towards a more diverse and inclusive workplace?
Yeah, Sarah, I love that question. I had the privilege of being part of the Diversity and Inclusion Council at True Blue when they first formed that. So that was a tremendous experience, and I learned so much about what that means, and that it goes beyond what you see, but it goes into different ways of thinking and different backgrounds and different approaches to things. That's how we solve problems. If everybody thinks and looks and does the same way, you don't get to creative solutions. So I think that recognizing that first is important. Certainly, traditionally, it's a male-dominated environment. I think there has been some diversity just based on different ethnic groups coming in from outside the country into the trades, but I think there's others that probably aren't as well represented, and it goes back to, there are some groups, like there is a women in construction group out there that is very active, but I believe the bigger organizations could do a better job of funding and supporting them and providing them with the kind of financial support and recognition that's needed to give more women the opportunity to enter into construction and into the trades. I think what's really important about that is your work speaks for itself. So if you're struggling to get some kind of acknowledgement or feel seen and heard in your current role, in construction, it comes down to, what can you do? I've seen a lot of women on a job site hold their own with the men. And I think what draws them to that is that sense of, again, control over my destiny. I know that if I go in there and I do the work well, that speaks for itself. But we need more, again, role models for that. There's a woman, Melissa Richards, sorry, she wrote a book called Girls Who Build. I just saw this recently. I thought it was fantastic. It's for young girls who are maybe never thought of themselves as being in the trades, never seen any role models of women in trades. And there's this great little book about girls who build. And, there's been a lot of folks who have put energy into girls who code, right? So more and more women have entered into technology and into becoming coders and programmers. And that, I think, has been highly successful because there's been some very, individuals who are well recognized in the industry who have promoted that. So what we need is for some people who are highly recognized in the industry to now promote these kinds of visuals that are going to give young girls say that, hey, I can see myself doing that. That would be great. And so I think those kinds of things are really important. But in general, the trades is an area, again, where my skills speak for themselves. And again, if you're feeling like you don't belong in somewhere else, this is a place where you can have a sense of belonging, and people are going to respect you for the work that you do. But we just need to make sure that is the organizations that are out there that also look to promote people into leadership who look different, who are representative of many different groups, both male and female and different ethnic groups and backgrounds. But I do think it is something that is, it's a very strong opportunity for people to come into from any background and be successful. But we just need more examples and role models to look to say, yes, I see myself in that environment. One quote I heard recently, I was just going to say that women actually tend to be better at project management because they follow the guidelines and they follow the project management outlined, and they're not trying to cowboy it. They're really probably going to be very good and better at delivering on something because of that.
Yeah. For a long time in education, my primary role was focused on advocacy for English language learners or bilingual folks. And I think in the skilled trades space, there's a lot of monolingual Spanish speakers and folks who are acquiring a second language. One thing I have noticed is that the skilled trades oftentimes is such a great opportunity for people who are acquiring multiple languages, because there's not this huge daunting proficiency that happens where in a corporate setting you have to be able to read, write, speak, listen proficiently in the dominant language. You can use you're literally producing something that's visual and tangible. And I also just think it's a great opportunity for so many of the students I've worked with where, they can make a fantastic career and still be able to celebrate their bilingualism and honor their culture and their language and that sense of belonging, that have gone on to have amazing careers. Former students that I still connect with on social media who are very proud Latinos living here in the United States that are gainfully employed and happy and have gone on to own their own businesses. And I think the skilled trades is one of the few spaces where I feel like English not being your first language is celebrated. When you can speak Spanish, I know here in Colorado, if you can speak Spanish, it is such a gift because you have the ability to communicate with so many of the trades folks. And so I love that it's this superpower. And I think it changes the language and the perceptions of the workforce.
Yeah, I would say that's very true, Sarah, in particularly with Latinos coming in that speak Spanish. Many of the safety information in particular, is often in Spanish and English. Almost always OSHA will provide information that's in Spanish and English. I think that's, you're right that becomes a really big benefit. And I think that community has done a tremendous job of coming into the skilled trades, building their reputation and moving on into leadership roles, starting their own businesses. It's fantastic. I think what we really need to see, though, is to tap into other communities where other languages are spoken. From a safety perspective, we need to translate that safety information into other languages so that we can draw in other communities that could be tremendous assets in the business. But the industry has been very focused and very good at building that around the Spanish, but not so much around other languages. So I think that's an opportunity if you're looking to, one of the challenges that we're faced in this country is that there's a projection of a shortage of 2 million skilled trades worker by the year 2030. That's pretty significant. Now, the government has put out this IRA Act that has a significant investment in infrastructure, in building, and clean energy, which is fantastic. But there isn't enough funding and effort in there to make sure that there are the people needed to do the work. And so I think that we're going to need to move beyond just appealing and talking to the Hispanic community to start speaking to other communities that could be tremendous assets in this industry moving forward. And once to get them into the industry and get them comfortable with it in their language to start with. But you're right, once you learn the work, the ability to speak fluently isn't as critical as in some other industries. So I think that's one of the areas that we could as a country, because if we're going to be able to take advantage of all this infrastructure money, which is much needed, and to get the work done, we're going to need to find ways to bring more people into the trades.
You talked about the 2 million shortage of workers by 2030, and I want to give you a little glimmer of hope. So my daughter is in 4th grade, and one of the projects that her class just finished is they had to build a bridge out of popsicle sticks that withstood 30 pounds of weight. But what I loved about it is it wasn't so much about the engineering of it. Each one of them had a different construction role. And Violet was the foreman, my daughter. And she was like, first of all, Mom, I'm a girl, not a foreman.
Good for
so
her.
I had to clarify. I loved it so much. And she's normally not very outgoing and bossy. She's pretty quiet, but I think that might have been the reason her teacher chose her for that role, is to kind of give her an opportunity to have a voice. But she went on. It's been days now, Shannon, that at the dinner table every night, she's talking about what it takes to be a foreman and how frustrated she is with this one team member that's just, it's one of her carpenters is not working out. And so, but being able to hear my 10-year-old articulate the different roles inside of the construction and how their roles have mattered more than how big and beautiful their bridge is. She hasn't even talked about, as I'm talking about this, she's never even talked about what it looks like. I can't even picture the bridge, because all she's been talking about is their roles and how they communicate and the roles that they play to make sure that today, which is the last day of school, when they do the 30-pound weight, her bridge is not going to collapse. And for a 10-year-old to start seeing themselves in a skilled trades space, I think that's where it has to start. If we've got this shortage, she's in elementary school and she still has the ability to articulate, but she had never even heard the word foreman. So having to even be educated around that, whereas you say some of these other terms that are more widely used, and it's oh yeah, I know what that means. But how she shows up as a leader in this project, what a beautiful way for educators that are listening out there, trainers, to integrate this drip feeding of potential career choices at such an early age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kudos to her too, there, for saying not for man, for girl.
Oh my gosh, she's so funny.
So I love that. And I think there's so many individual little lessons here that you just talked about. And I was just having this conversation the other day with someone, a young woman who was doing a project with a team in high school. And what happens when your teammates don't do their part? And how do you get the job done? And she's realizing, I can't. I need these people to do their piece. It won't happen without that. And how do I, and it's the same, I think, people issues that we deal with, whether you're on a job site or working on this, or whether in any other environment, is how do you then communicate to those individuals the importance of their role and why they need to be part of that, and that the project can't move forward until we have you do your role. So she's learning so many great lessons here, but she's learning it within the context of construction and building something, which is really cool. So I think that is, it's something that we just need to, and we as parents also need to celebrate that. And if our children or our friends' children or any young people we see or talk to or interact with express interest in the trades, we should be celebrating that and helping them, have them talk about it. Tell me more about that. What's interesting to you about that, and how do you see that as a career, and what attracts you to that? And let me connect you with somebody who's in the industry who could tell you what it's like on a day-to-day basis. And I think those are things that we can each do as individuals and parents, because we as parents are some biggest problems here in not encouraging that with our kids or our friends' kids or just any young people that we connect with, to say, hey, this is a really tremendous opportunity. And the schools, there are pockets of schools that have trades programs and have construction academies, but you guys may not have experienced this, but my brother's got wood shop at school, and all learned to use tools and all learned to build in high school. And kids today aren't getting that. No. And it's unfortunate. So, but I love that story. I think that I'll be anxious to hear if she moves in that direction.
And I will report back to you later if it withstood the 30-pound weight.
Yeah, so I think, and if you're a women's business owner in construction, you have a tremendous opportunity to really be a key player.
Yeah.
You know, Sarah, I think that example that you just shared with us, like, I think it's such a beautiful learning activity for Violet. Like, I am really, really impressed with the educators that came up with this as kind of an immersive experience, because when you think about it as a case study against like some of the biggest challenges of leadership in a corporate environment, like this gives kids at a very young age, like exposure to some of those challenges, but a context-based way to work through them. So for example, you talked a lot about roles and responsibilities and really embodying your individual roles and using those roles to figure out how to collaborate in harmony with each other in service of a specific objective. Right. And like at the heart of it, like that's what running a team and being a leader in business actually is. But why is it so difficult for leaders in a corporate environment? I think it's because the objective is abstract. Your contribution to the objective is abstract. Your line of sight to the impact that you accomplish. Too many companies fail at communicating back to the people who built the thing, the impact of the thing that they've built, right? And in the skilled trades, you have line of sight to all of that. You're in the trenches with your leader, sometimes literally in the trenches with your leader. You are shoulder to shoulder. Shannon mentioned earlier how your leaders have like technical experience in most cases doing the thing that you did. So they have credibility. You're not just looking to them for kind of perspective and direction. You're also looking to them for their technical skills and their technical ability, right? There's like a respect in that hierarchy that happens there. And, you know, there's a connection to the work. Like if you didn't do your job and the bridge falls down and you know the point at which it buckled, you kind of know whether or not that was your fault or not, right? But on the flip side, like if it holds that 30-pound weight, you truly get to celebrate as a team for the thing.
She's going to be like,
right. I mean, like, and that's a formative moment. That's core memory right there, right? Like, core memory. It's something that she's going to be looking back to probably for the rest of her life as her first real taste of what it's like.
Well, the fact that she's like talking about it like a grown ass adult at the dinner table. Because normally it's like, we did this activity in, you know, art, or I got an A on my math project, but she's just like, this team that I'm working with. It's so frustrating. We're not going to get this done. I don't know.
I'm going to have to put Johnny on a pip.
And I'm like, I'm like laughing inside because it's so cute that at 10 years old, she's experiencing, to Scott's point, like the real reality of working together in teams as an adult.
Absolutely.
But man, can you imagine if every 10-year-old got the opportunity to do something like this? And here's the thing, because I'm a educational expert, was an K-12 for 20 years. That is not, I can tell you and promise you, that lesson that she's doing, that project, is not in any curriculum. We just don't, it's not something that we like prescribe, like it's not something we recommend. It's something her teacher would have had to make up and do. But if Violet can have these like, it's good to be frustrated. It's good to realize that the product might not be what it needs to be, in this really safe and healthy visual, like Scott said, it's not abstract way. And that gets reinforced through the years. Her ability to lead in whatever she does in the future would be, I mean, oh my gosh, it would save her so much heartache.
Yeah. And she gets an opportunity to practice and to try on the role of a leader and see if she, even though it's frustrating, she's talking about it at your dinner table. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, getting your 10-year-old to talk about something like that at your dinner table, it's obviously she's processing it through the day. So
Yeah.
maybe she's starting to discover, maybe I have some innate leadership skills and I kind of like this. She may not be thinking of it that way, but it's trying that on. The other thing that, Scott, when you were talking, I thought about is watching the problem solving process on a job site. Because there are things that go wrong. This didn't fit. We're 1 inch short. What do we do? There are things that happen, and it's a very collaborative problem-solving experience to watch the diagnostics that take place on, okay, we've got this situation. We can't scrap it. So let's continue. We have to move forward. We have to fix it. What's the best path forward? How do we do this? And I think that's what your Violet is doing now too, is that problem solving as well. It isn't one person's job to solve the problem. It's a collection of people that come together and say, what are the different options? What are the pros and cons of each? What's going to help us get to the end result that we wanted in the first place? And I think that whole process is really fascinating to watch, and also something that I think could be replicated in the business B2B world, where the person in the room that has the highest title isn't the one that's going to solve the problem. It's the people that are doing the work every day, and make sure that you include them in that conversation when you want to get to a resolution that's going to be optimal.
Well, Shannon, thank you just so much for sharing your perspective with us. I think you've helped us all to really kind of think about the skilled trades a lot differently. I'm walking away with just a lot more perspective about how vital, important, and fulfilling of a career path that can actually be. So now it's time to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go to the lightning round. The lightning round is a section of the show that we like to do with all of our guests, where we'll ask you a series of questions, and some of them will be work-related, others will not be. And the rules of the lightning round are simple. You have 30 seconds off the cuff to give us your response, and ready, go.
All right, first question. Who's a leader that you look up to and why?
On a personal level, my longtime mentor and dear friend, Patty Musoff, was my boss during my years at Skilled Trades and led that group for a long time. And she really taught me to put people first and lead with heart. And she's a beloved leader and someone that I still look up to today, but call her a friend for life. And so she's the first person that comes to mind.
So nice. All right. What's your bucket list vacation destination?
Ooh, that's an easy one. I love mountains. I live in Washington State, where we have lots of beautiful mountains here. So mine is Patagonia. I saw pictures of it years ago. I fell in love and said, I have to go. Read the book Wild Idea, where Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, and Doug Thompson's the founder of North Face, made this crazy trip in their 20s down from California to Patagonia. And that's why he named his company Patagonia. So that is it on my bucket list for the next year to 2 years at max.
All right. I'll come with you.
I have a quick question about your mountain destination. What's your preferred way of traveling? Like, are you thinking of roughing it, like in a tent, or glamping, or like staying in a resort?
Yes.
Okay.
So for Patagonia, it will be the W, which is the trek. It's a particular trek. But I did just get back from a 4-night backpacking trip in Utah. So backpacking is my kind of passion, and just being hiking, but I love getting out and backpacking.
Wow. Respect. I haven't graduated to that level. We like to glamp in our RV, but like backpacking is a whole new level. Yeah.
Yeah. I highly recommend it.
Amazing. All right. Switching direction a little bit. Could you tell us about the funniest or maybe most awkward moment that you've had in the workplace?
Boy, the first one that comes to mind is when my kids were little. I traveled a lot, but I tried to be very quiet in the morning. So I was traveling to San Francisco, got dressed in the closet in the dark, and arrived in San Francisco into the office and looked down, and I had one blue shoe and one black shoe. And I thought, oh my God, I can't go to a client like this. I don't know why I didn't feel like they were different shoes, but Anyway, so fortunately, I was in downtown San Francisco, and there was a shoe store across the street. So I quickly ran over and bought a pair. But I thought, oh my gosh, before it was too good.
Did you do that on purpose to go shopping?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. I was mortified. I looked down and thought, oh my God, I went all the way to the airport, got on the plane, got off the plane, got the office before I realized I had 2 different shoes on. So that was embarrassing.
That was really funny. All right. What's the most useful non-work related app on your phone?
Well, living in the Northwest, my weather app is multiple times a day. Check my weather app because, here, if you want to get out and do something outdoors, which is what I love to do, you kind of time it based on when the weather is good. So, or if I'm traveling someplace, I always add that location 10 days out before I leave so I can start to track what I need to pack and what the weather might be like. So my weather app is every day, multiple times a day sometimes.
Shannon, living in Arizona, I also leverage my weather app religiously, but for me, the decision set is, do I leave the house today or not? Or do I just cower in a corner with the AC on? I'm bracing for the summer. It's going to be bad.
Yeah. I hear you. I don't know what I did without it before where you just depended on the newspaper to tell you what the next 5 days look like.
All right. What's the most important thing that you've done to invest in your mental health?
I go out in the woods and I turn off my phone. I give myself permission to shut off my phone for 2 or 3 days. And honestly, we don't do that enough. And I mentioned backpacking, generally someplace where your phone doesn't work. So you shut it off. And it does so much to just kind of calm you and center you. So that's my place. That's my place where I go to kind of get recentered and emotionally and mentally healthy.
Love it. All right. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Boy, I think the thing that I find most difficult to tolerate is when people don't do what they say they're going to do. It's one thing if you tell me I can't, but if you tell me I'll either be there or I'll get this done or I'll follow and then you don't, then that's what probably frustrates me. I understand life happens, but without notice and just for somebody to not deliver on something or not be there when they say they're going to be there, it's probably the one thing that gets me most frustrated.
Are you an on-time person?
I would say I've gotten much better about that over time, but I always let people know I'm running late.
That is nice. All right. What's a piece of literature or art that has shaped your perspective on life?
I like to read, and I like nonfiction and fiction, but I think that I find that I can draw leadership lessons from reading about leaders. And what I think that I've learned over that is different leadership styles are relevant for different times. And one that stood out for me was I read The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson, which is about Winston Churchill's first year as prime minister during the if you read it, Scott, but it's an amazing book. And I think it was really enlightening to say that Churchill was exactly what London needed and what England needed during that phase. He may not have been a great leader during a phase that is a non-war times or calm times. He was a character, but he was able to. I'm not sure anybody else could have kept London and kept England going during that phase. He was just the right leader for the right time. Steve Jobs stood out to me too. Do I want to emulate his leadership? No, but he had this way of understanding how science and humanity, when they intersect, a beautiful thing happens. And so he really it was really important to him to make sure that not only did the device work, but it felt good to hold on to it. It felt good to open up the box. It felt good. So that I always remember that intersection of humanities and science as being something that very few people recognize or put emphasis on, that I think is a really interesting perspective on life and on why people gravitate towards one thing or another.
And final question, what is your mission in life?
Oh boy, that's a big question, Skylar.
I know, it's too big.
I think when I was raising children, it was to raise them to be good human beings. And I think as time goes on, I don't know that I have a great big mission, but I really want to create environments that are welcoming, that are, whether it's my home or work, that people feel comfortable and safe, and that everyone is welcome and tolerant. I think, we all talk about accepting other people, but I think that the actual acceptance of people's faults and taking them for who they are is not the reality necessarily in today. So I think I really try to find that good in each person and celebrate the differences so that it feels welcoming and creating that environment for people wherever I am, whether it's in a work environment or home or any place else.
Yeah, that's so important, Shannon. I don't think that people are mindful enough of how they show up and the role that they play in either enabling and empowering or discouraging and disempowering, and I think we would all be better off, because hearkening back to a response that you gave earlier about the right leaders at the right times, like we at Unity & Co. believe that extends to all of us, that we are differently gifted, differently abled, and that the set of experiences and circumstances and skills that we all bring to the table are not just arbitrarily distributed. Like there is a way, there is a purpose on how we are to wield and apply those things. And it's incumbent upon us to look for that purpose, you know? And I love the way that you've placed it, which is just looking for every opportunity to create like those connections and to be a positive voice in other people's lives.
I think our heads tend to go to what's different about someone from us, not just what they look like, but how they behave. And I think there's a natural almost tendency to want to be critical when someone is different. And so you have to, you kind of retrain your mind to constantly say, well, that's okay. That's good. And that's a balance for where I might be good in this one area and they're good in something else. And that embrace my friends for who they are, and know that, like, I've got my faults, they've got their faults, but we love each other, and then we need to remember that and not try and force people to be in a box that fits whatever we think is the right kind of person to be or the right behaviors. So, but I don't think it comes naturally most of the time. I think it's something you have to continually work at and remind people of.
Absolutely. Oh, man. Well, Shannon, it was such a treat to get the experience of learning from you and of just learning about like your perspective on the skilled trades and about leadership and life. So thank you so much for spending the time with us here on the show. Now, as we close out, I wanted to ask you if we have a listener in the audience who would love to get in contact with you, either to engage with you in some consulting work or to gather some perspective from you on an area of expertise that you have, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I think probably the easiest way is go to my LinkedIn page. I monitor it regularly throughout the day. Send me a message. I will respond right away. That's probably, and then give you a little information about me, like contact information and history, but I absolutely monitor that on a regular basis. And I respond to anybody who would reach out to me and say, if you heard me on the podcast and you'd like to just have a conversation, then I will get back to you immediately. Unless I happen to be up in the mountains and my phone's off.
Then it'll be a couple days.
Then it'll be a couple days, but I'm never out there more than 3 or 4 days. So yes. But thank you both. I thank you all for having me. This has been a pleasure. So it's a subject I love talking about, and I really appreciate your perspective to bring this subject to your podcast and the importance of feeling feeling appreciated, needed, and physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy at work. And it applies to all work sites.
Well, you are very welcome, and the pleasure is ours. All right. If you enjoyed this conversation with Shannon, would like to hear more content like it, you can reach out to us at info@workplacetherapy.net. If you're interested in working with Unity & Company on any leadership development or corporate consulting engagements, you can reach out to us at info@unityandcompany.com. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in.